Good morning and welcome to the little apartment on the prairie. Please ignore my messy hair. I am getting ready to knead some bread and I thought I'd talk to you all while I do it. So, it is Saturday, April 18th, and what I wanted to talk about is how I'm noticing, hear those cats fighting? Cultural changes, I think, due to this pandemic, and I'm curious, first of all, like, different parts of our country have different cultures, right? Hang on, I gotta put this baking soda away so the cats don't knock it over and spill it. Different parts of the country have different cultures, different cultural norms, and so I'm wondering what cultural changes you might have noticed where you live. Remember, I'm in Nebraska, in the heartland, in a very rural area, very, very small town. We have about 1,600 people in my town, and my town's the biggest town in the county. It's the county seat. The county hospital is here, which I believe has 8 beds. The biggest industry here is actually a prison that's on the outskirts of town. But most people in my county, I think, are farmers. People who live in town, many don't farm, although some work on farms. Hi, Isaac. But anyway, so, the cultural norms where I live may be different than where you live. But I'm noticing changes here, and I'm wondering if they're going to be permanent changes or just temporary changes. For instance, this morning I was walking Isaac, and we passed a man walking his dog, and this man had on a mask. I don't wear a mask when I walk my dog. People in my town are finally starting to wear masks when they're out in public. They're kind of slow to do it. I don't wear a mask when I walk Isaac because it's so easy. Often I don't pass another person, and it's very easy to avoid any type of close interaction with people. So what I did was step over into the grass alongside the sidewalk, like on the side away from the road. There's a field, and I stepped over close to the field. And I wasn't even thinking so much initially about not coming too close to the man, but keeping his dog from coming too close to my dog, because I don't know if his dog is friendly. And I tried to avoid allowing Isaac to greet dogs that we don't know, because sometimes they're not friendly or well behaved or whatever. So that's why I initially stepped away. But then he stepped into the road with his dog, and I noticed he was wearing a mask. And I don't know if the reason he stepped away was to avoid me or to avoid my dog. Either way is okay, but normally I would only know if he stepped away. I would know it would be because of the dog. But, he lifted up his hand. In Nebraska, we do this thing when we pass people, especially if we're driving like on a country road where you don't pass many cars. You drive by, you lift your hand, or you just lift a couple fingers and like wave at people. My hands are all flowery. It's what we do in Nebraska. Let's see my bread. So it's what we do in Nebraska. It's a Nebraska thing. It's a cultural thing. So he gave me the wave, but didn't get too close to me. And I noticed, and he didn't talk to me. And I've noticed that people make less small talk when they're wearing masks. It's a little awkward to have small talk when you're wearing a mask, I guess. And I live in a place where people make a lot of small talk. Like when I moved here, I had to make a conscious effort to learn how to make appropriate small talk, because I wanted to fit in and I wanted to be friendly to people and get to know people. And people here are so friendly and so nice and so helpful. But small talk is so much a thing. And it's mainly about the weather. And I've never been good at small talk, and I had to make an effort to learn to do it. But it's harder to do it with masks on, I think, and so people don't do it as much. The other day in the grocery store, I came around a corner and was face to face with another shopper who was wearing a mask. And we both, I think, were startled and kind of jumped backwards, but then we just turned our carts around and went in opposite directions. Whereas normally we would have said something to each other about the weather or about what we were buying at the store or some sort of small talk. And then a couple days ago, I also had to stop at the post office, and there was a man going out the door before me. And normally around here, someone who goes out the door first would hold the door for the person coming behind. And I thought to myself when that happened, oh, don't hold the door for me. You don't need to hold the door for me, because I didn't want to have to get right next to him. But that was okay. He didn't hold the door for me. He just like took off without me, without waiting for me to come out, which was fine. That was what I wanted, but it was also outside of the cultural norm enough that it made me, take note of it. And so I wonder if we're going to be like less helpful and less friendly to each other in the future. If we're going to get used to these things, if this is going to last long enough that our cultural norms here will actually change. Now, I know in some cities people aren't that friendly anyway, that you wouldn't like talk to a stranger in the grocery store just because you almost ran into her with your grocery cart. You wouldn't like discuss the best recipe for a cake just because you had flour and sugar and eggs in your cart. You wouldn't do that in New York City, right? But we do that here. So, if you were buying canning supplies, not only might you discuss the best recipe for canning, a certain type of jelly with the clerk at the store who is ringing up your canning supplies, you might go back the next day after you'd made some jelly and take her a jar. Like, people really, truly do that here. But I'm wondering if, we're not going to do that in the future, or if that's only going to be temporary. And that's a part of the culture here that I would hate to lose. Now, I think there are a lot of things in our society that might change because of this virus, and I'm hoping that's the case. It seems like a lot of politicians have suddenly realized that, hey, a lot of Americans don't have any paid sick time, and they won't stay home from work even when they're sick because they need the money, or even because they're afraid of losing their job if they miss too much work. And I'm not sure how they just now noticed that. I'm guessing somebody probably has mentioned it to them before now, but now they've noticed and they actually care. So maybe that'll change, and people are realizing that not having health care is a problem, not having health insurance, because there are people who might have symptoms of the virus and should go get tested, but they won't because they're afraid of a big bill they can't afford. And I know the CDC said that nobody would get charged to get tested for a virus, but people are getting billed. And not only are they getting charged for tests for the virus in some cases, but even if they're not getting charged for a test for the virus, they're getting charged for everything else. Like if you go to the ER because you're sick and they test you for the virus, maybe they won't charge you for the virus test, but you're going to get charged. I have to go wash flour off my hands. They'll also test you for influenza first, and they'll charge you for that test. And they'll charge you for the ER visit, and they'll charge you for, any other type of treatment you do. If they tell you, well, you don't have the virus and, you're a little dehydrated, we're going to give you some IV fluids and you can go home, you'll be fine. They're going to charge you for those IV fluids, and they're going to charge you for all this stuff. So people are afraid of going to the emergency room. If they're sick and they're afraid of going to get tested for the virus, and a lot of people have presented copies of their bills where they've gotten charged something like $900 for a test for coronavirus. And maybe they'll get that worked out and maybe they won't. But for someone for whom an ER visit, because they're not just charging you for the test for the virus, but they're charging you for whatever else you had done. And for someone for whom, a $3,500 ER bill is going to bankrupt them Those people are not going to the ER. Time for more coffee. Bring me your cone, Isaac. I'll give you a treat. So those people are not going to the ER. And politicians are like, all of a sudden, oh, well, that could be a problem. You think? But, I mean, surely they were aware that lots of Americans didn't have health insurance and couldn't get health care before now, right? This is not news. But I'm wondering if that may change in the future, that people are suddenly realizing, hey, this really is a bad thing. We need to do something about it. And I'm hoping that's the case. I'm going to go pick up milk tomorrow. I've got about this much in another jug, like less than half. But this is the jugs when I get raw milk from a local farm. This is what it comes in, these glass jugs. And I can return the jugs if I want. If I buy the milk and in the jug, well, if I buy milk and a new jug, it costs me $10 for a gallon. But if I bring back the jug next time I come, then it's only $5 for the next gallon of milk. So it's like a $5, deposit on the jug if I want to return it. If I keep the jug, then I pay the $5 for it. Or I could show up with my own containers and pour the milk out of the jug into my container and leave the jug there and just pay $5. But I just reuse the same containers because it's easier. You see Sassy? She's trying to get into something. Yeah. All right. So, that might be a change. And I'm thinking there might be a change in allowing people to work from home, especially if they have health problems or disabilities that make it harder to go into an office, because now lots of companies have seen that it's possible to do that. And maybe homeschooling will be, or online schooling, maybe something that's done more for kids who benefit from it. But also, I think a lot of parents might appreciate teachers a lot more. Because they've seen how hard it is to homeschool their children. And so these are changes that I'm thinking will be helpful. A lot of people are buying seeds and starting gardens, as I am. And so maybe that's something that we'll see more of in the near future, which would be a great cultural change all across the country. But I hope we don't give up the small talk or some of the helpfulness here where I am. Now, one of my neighbors came back from the dollar store today, and he'd wanted to buy a package of Benadryl because he has bad sinus problems. And I had given him some Benadryl a while back, and it helped him a lot, so he went to go buy some. And for one of those packages of 20 pills, where they have them in the little bubble things, the little foil bubble packs, for 20 pills, they wanted $15. And I know I bought a bottle of 50 Benadryl for, I don't know what, maybe $5 or $6. But that was a while back. And I said, yeah, I guess that's, drug prices are going up because we get a lot of our drugs from China and India, and they're not coming right now, because I've been saying that. Well, another neighbor said just a minute, and she went into her house and came out with a bottle of Benadryl, and she said, I used to take this when I had allergy problems, but I don't so much anymore. So here, and gave him a whole bottle of Benadryl. So, I mean, people here are still helpful in that way. You need something, oh, I've got it, and I'm not using it right now. I'll give it to you. Although, I may be a little less giving than I used to be. And in the future, I hope I will be again. But, I don't want to give away my last Benadryl to get more, if it's even available. It's going to cost me almost $1 a pill. I mean, come here, Isaac. I'll give you a treat. Him over there, he just lays on the floor and complains because he has no treat in his Kong. Kong Genius, best toys ever. I need to see if I can get more. And you need a treat too, Sassafras? She eats dog treats. She eats anything. So, I hope we don't lose some of the parts of the culture here that I really like and that I think are meaningful and make me like living here. And But it seems like it's probably inevitable that culture, that this is going to change culture. If it goes on long enough, I mean, our government, our businesses are even concerned that there will be some permanent changes. Like, people in America used to eat out a lot, and now a lot more people are cooking at home. And restaurant businesses are concerned that that's going to become a permanent cultural change, that even when it's no longer considered risky to eat out, like when the medical experts think it's perfectly safe to eat in a restaurant, some people may still worry that it's not safe. And also some people will just be accustomed to cooking at home and they won't want to eat out all the time. Or, like the travel industry is concerned that not only might we think it's not safe to travel, but even if it is safe to travel, we'll get used to staying home more and then they'll make less money. So it's just some interesting things to think about. Let me know, if you've noticed any kinds of cultural changes where you are, especially in how people act towards each other. Are people more helpful, less helpful, more friendly, less friendly? What are you seeing? Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't so that you can see more videos. Hi, Sassy. You've got some little treat crumbs over here on the table, girl. And I hope you all stay well and have a good weekend, friends.